Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I have Debbie Hart. She's going to teach you how to have more profit in your business. I cannot wait to dive into this. Let's go. So, how can an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, a coach, an entrepreneur have more profit? In fact, I talked to someone recently and they made like 800,000 but barely made a profit, barely paid themselves. They hit their payroll, but this is a real problem.
It is a real problem. And I call this out at all the networking events that I go to and all of the pitch fests that I go to. The topic is all about revenue, but revenue feeds your ego, profits feed your family. So if you're thinking, if you did $1 million in revenue, but you didn't bring anything home or hardly anything home, then is that not worse than a 9-to-5 job? How are you making ends, you're working for free or worse at that point in time. So I've been a coach for over a decade, for 15 years. I have certifications in many different avenues in personal empowerment and Tony Robbins advanced relationship stuff, but I really have honed in. I really just love the business world. I really do, because honestly, if you believe in, personal development or manifesting or any of that stuff, where the rubber really hits the road is if you can build your own business, you are truly building your own reality. And we need that. We do need that to be profitable, to be sustainable. Absolutely. So I do dive into key areas with people. And we work with entrepreneurs across all ages and stages. Like you, I have a podcast that's free for people who are if they're just getting started or they need some motivation or some inspiration. So our podcast is called Ignition Point. It's on YouTube. It's free. All the episodes are 15 minutes or less, and they are all self-made millionaires. And they're not peddling the cold plunges and the gratitude journals that everyone talks about. We don't cover any of that stuff. I'm asking them, first of all, what was your ignition point? How did you come up with this idea? So for people who are in that startup phase or just want to, branch out on their own. So we get the inspiration going on all, like, how people come up with these ideas, whether it's a personal passion, whether they see a problem in the market that needs to be solved. And then we talk about their hero's journey, the hard things that they had to overcome along the way. A lot of the stuff that also people aren't talking about, like if you scale too fast and you overhire and then you can't make payroll, or a bad business partner that embezzled from you, or there's just a lot of things that happen that people don't realize. It's a natural part of this journey. These things are going to happen. So we dive into the dark stuff, not to scare people, but to actually empower them to know how to plan properly for these things that are probably going to happen.
I love it. It's like entrepreneurial big brother and sisters teaching you how to go. So how can we become more profitable? I know you dive into people individually, but do you use profit first, or do you have your own
No, I have my
system?
own proprietary system. So when I work one-to-one with people, I do have a software that has almost 500 million algorithms.
Ooh.
And we have two different aspects that we go through. So if someone, for the first 90 days, we're for sure going to start in on what I call the Jumpstart 12. So there's these 12 key areas, and I can cover a few of them today. And by then, most people they're on the path to doubling their profits by the end of the year within those 90 days, almost always. In fact, I always 100% guarantee to at least double their ROI of working with me, or they don't pay.
Nice.
So essentially your coaching is free.
Mm-hmm.
And so we covered these 12 key areas of profitability, and it really goes off of the compounding effect. We take minor tweaks each week on these different areas, and they add up to more than doubling your profits in the amount of time. 93% of business owners tend to find at least $100,000 more in profit without any additional cost.
Wonderful. So what would be an example? Give us a case example of a client that found an additional 100,000.
Quick and easy way. So one of the first topics, and we don't have to always go in order. Everything's customized to where that business owner is at in their business and what they're working on and what systems they already have in place. But one quick and easy way is to go into cutting costs. A lot of business owners are so focused on marketing that they forget about little details in all of these other areas. So we'll go into suppliers. If it's, if they're a product business, we can go into suppliers, and we can do a deep dive into their competitors and what they're offering or negotiating, or we can look at reducing cost of goods sold. So it depends on the business, but one of the quickest and easiest ways to get more profit with little to no cost is to look at cutting what costs you're already spending: overhead, employee retention. There's a lot of little areas in there. Again, it depends on the business, right?
Software.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I love all that. That's a really good tip. So go and look at the softwares, the competitors, see if you can get something for less. I mean, it's super smart. People just get so busy that they ignore those details and they just pile them on. It's great.
It's true. And if anyone wants to deep dive into that themselves, I actually still have a bunch of free resources on my website.
Okay.
ignitionpointacademy.com. If they sign up, they will get a video on each one of these topics every week, and they will get a free ebook download that has 12 more of those strategies.
Thank you, Ignition Point Academy. Okay, so before we push play, you tell me that you do events and you do speaking, and a lot of people here are speakers. So tell us some of your tips for getting booked to speak, and then when you do speak, being profitable.
That I love, because that is my favorite way to do business. I do have a bunch of online stuff for people because we are a international company, but my favorite thing is people. I love being with people in person. So I host my own events, and finding speakers is not difficult for me because my events tend to sell out, and so it's easy. There's people constantly wanting to come and speak. So, but for those who are speakers and they're trying to find events, the more you're out there, the more you get footage of yourself. Because I speak at my own events, and then I post little clips and little reels, or even just still photos of me speaking at my events. And so I get approached frequently. I don't even have to seek for speaking events or podcast guesting at all. I am booked to be on 5 other people's podcasts this week and 4 other people's events this month. And I didn't seek any of that. They sought me because I'm putting myself out there as a speaker on all of my socials, in my emails, and yeah.
Exactly. So be the fruit and they will want more of you. Okay. And then what happens if I know that you love speaking, but how do you help? What is the best way to fill rooms? What's the best way for you to fill rooms or fill events?
Yeah. So see, and this is the advice I would give whether you are a speaker or you're someone filling the room, provide value. Nobody likes to spend $47 or $97 or $297 to come to a commercial.
True.
Provide value for what they've paid for already. Now, I am not against upsells at the end. I always allow my speakers to upsell at the end because I think a rising tide lifts all ships. So yes, I want my speakers to be able to sell more, because if the audience loves them, they're going to want more.
Yeah.
But I require that they must provide in that hour time frame that I've given them. If there's 30 business owners in the room, well, actually I always have 100. So that's 100 100 hours.
Yes.
People's lives that you're spending. Time is our most valuable resource. You can make more money, but you can't make more time. So you are spending 100 hours of attention, and it better not just be for your upsell. I want actual value, content that they can come away with, content that they can use. And that's where someone really knows if they want to work with you anyway. I hear so many complaints about other people's events to where they just felt like they were pitched to, they just felt like it was a commercial, whether it was free or paid or not. Nobody wants to spend their time that way. And if you give free value, and Alex Hermosi is very well known for this, if you give free value, then the people who could actually want to work with you are more drawn to you because they know what you're really about. They know what your content is really about.
Yes, bring the value, folks. Bring the value. I signed up for a free challenge recently, and the lady was pitching on day one. I mean, I wasn't getting value. And yes, it was free, and I did watch it on replay on 2X. But that's why I really think that like the free people, they don't invest. And then it's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah.
It really is. Okay, so what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen speakers make?
What you just said, pitching
Mhm.
from the get-go, it is such a turnoff. And then and yeah, we maybe, free events are not always the best way either, because like you said, if people don't have any skin in the game, they tend to not take action, and knowledge without application is the same as no knowledge. You
Mhm.
actually hurt yourself because you wasted time that
Yeah.
could have been spent building something. Well,
Yes.
yeah, pitching sales without value, without actual content, to me is the worst mistake.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Well, that's huge. And what happens if someone is nervous about speaking? Because I know I saw you just do a keynote. What would you say to someone who might either they're like you and me and they're like, just give me the mic, I can do this, or people who feel afraid to speak or nervous about speaking?
Well, the only way to get over fear is to do it. So practicing
Mhm.
small, and I've never been to any formal speaker training, honestly. I will admit that. I've never been to any of these groups, but this is the advice from many people I know in speaker circuits, because for me, it's just who I am. I love speaking and being in front of people. And yes, you could ask me to do it with 5 minutes notice and I could pull it off and I would love
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But plenty of friends who are worried and scared, and the speakers who worked their way through that, the advice that they always give is go find, join the speakers association or Toastmasters, because that's what they are designed to do. It's to help you get practice and
Mhm.
feedback from compassionate people going through the same process at the same time.
That's good. I did Toastmasters back in 2005 when I started, and it wasn't super beneficial. They counted my ums, my likes, and my so's.
So do you have a training for speakers?
Yeah, I teach them more how to attract clients and create wealth in a weekend and
Okay.
speak their way to success. So they're more, to me, it's not about being perfect,
Yeah.
although it is really important to be a good communicator and, iron your saw, strengthen your saw on in terms of becoming a better communicator. But ultimately, I think people, they care more about your message than the way you let it out.
I agree. And so I would say do your research. It depends on, who you're speaking to, what kind of events you're speaking at, and what your objective is. Because
Mhm.
if you really want to be pristine and perfect because you're speaking, to a room of delegates or something, maybe National Speakers Association would be good for you. Maybe you want to get all your ums and likes out, or
Right.
you want to find the training. So it could be someone like Amanda, and it could be, I have a couple of friends who have trained some of those speakers that have been on stages with Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar, and they're here in Utah, and I give referrals to them on a frequent basis. They're more about, getting that person's stories outside of them and into a memorized format to where the audience can connect with them. So it depends on what you're going for, what you're speaking about, and what your objectives are.
I will give a recommendation. There's an app that everyone can download called SPEEKO, SPEEKO. And it's like a little mini Toastmasters. It can tell you how many likes, how your eloquence is, how your rhythm is, your tone is. And that, I don't know, it's probably $50 a year. I would recommend that.
If you're building
SPEEK.
your own, I love that. I love resources. For me, see, I just again. Again, no formal training. I probably could use it. I probably could fine tune my craft, but I'm so busy building other things and I'm so comfortable on stage that I don't worry about that too much. There are people like Grant Cardone who build, a 10-figure empire, and he speaks like that still. He's not
True.
eloquent. And there's plenty. So it's, again, it's being authentic and finding what works for
Mhm.
you. You feel like you're afraid and that resistance is holding you back, then finding an app or a group or a personal coach could be the thing for you. But if you're not afraid to just get on stage and
Just do it.
roll with it and just do it, then refine your skills somewhere else where you do find your weak point. When I coach people on a personal basis rather than just on the profits within their business, that's what we're refining every week is what is your weak point? So for me, when I started speaking, I loved the speaking and I could motivate and I could inspire really easily, but I wasn't closing. I wasn't making sales and I was not profitable, which meant my events are not going to stay in business if I don't also learn how to make it profitable. As fun as it is, you can't do something forever if you're not making money. I love being purpose-driven and profit-driven. As a woman who's in her feminine energy more than her masculine energy, my nature is purpose-driven. And yet we must also focus on profits or we can't live our purpose.
I love that. So just what's like one kind of vulnerable moment that you might have had over these 15 years where you might have woken up and thought, I don't know if I can keep going, or this is hard. Share just like an intimate sort of challenge that you might have had and how you overcame it.
Well, I do share this story. I didn't want to at first. This is something I had to be talked into because for me, when I'm all, I learned about mindset and personal development. It's all about focus on solutions, focus on your goals. That's how you're productive. It's not productive to whine and be a victim, right? But also it can help your audience not just build rapport with you, but get inspired to overcome these things themselves. So for me, my pain story, my why story, my origin story, my hero's journey did start over a decade ago, 12 years ago. I was a stay-at-home homeschooling mother of 6. And my spouse at the time decided that was no longer the life for him. And for several months, unbeknownst to me behind my back, he had planned not just a divorce, but a pretty nasty one. We got the papers and he had paid his an attorney to illegally present me with immediate eviction notice. I didn't know an attorney could or would misrepresent the law, but the bank accounts had been emptied out, so I had no way of getting one myself. So I got the divorce notice. I had a few minutes to find somewhere for me and 6 kids to live, or it said, or you'll be arrested for trespassing. Bank accounts had been emptied out, so we had to bounce around in people's basements, and we had no food and not a penny to my name for the first several months. So this is how I learned how to be an entrepreneur. It's by being scrappy and resourceful, because at that point in time, I couldn't get a job that would cover daycare for 6 kids, let alone living expenses, right? Because I had not developed a career, nor did I have a degree at that point in time, because I had gotten married right out of high school. And then I had my first 4 kids in 5 years. And so I just had the mindset of, someday when my youngest is in school, I will go to school. And someday never came. So I figured it out the hard way, step by step, line upon line, moment by moment. And it was all a decision every day to decide, I'm going to get better instead of bitter. What can I do today to get better instead of bitter? Because again, and I'm not underplaying how hard it was, or anyone who's in a moment like that, how emotionally hard it is to literally be in survival mode. There were days I did not know where we would sleep or what we would eat. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but you have to decide, like, the longer you sit in those defeated emotions, the longer it takes to do something about it. And if you fight for your excuses, you get to keep them. All of your sad, hard feelings are valid, but where do they get you? So feel it and then decide what you need to do to heal it and move on. What can I do about it? How can I get food today? Where can I sleep today? And then what can I do to learn to earn today? And then I would do that.
So what jobs did you start learning to earn?
So I had always been interested in psychology. I had originally planned to go get a degree as a psychologist, but that is several years. So my fast track into that field was actually starting out. I took 4 weekends and got a hypnotherapy certification and started helping people lose weight and quit smoking, because I could make $150 in an hour and do it from home and then be there with my kids. So that's how I started. And then I would save enough to add, another certification and another and another, and another. And I built everything that way.
Amazing. And how old were your children?
They were all at home still. They're not now because this was 12 years ago, but my youngest had just barely turned 3 and my oldest was 15.
Oh my gosh. That is challenging. Okay, that I wasn't expecting that story. That is incredible, Debbie Hart. You completely overcame the odds. You were essentially homeless and you built and built and built and built. And now what? So okay, thank you for sharing all that. It's so inspiring. And like anyone can do it if they decide to do it.
You can. So that, often our wounds are what drive us forward. So everything I have built and offered today is everything I wish I had had 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I love we have a mutual friend, Maylee Nelson, and we met at her event, and I love what she said. No one is self-made.
True.
Right? No one is self-made. We had
No.
so much help this
Mm-hmm.
years. And that's what it takes. You've got to allow people to receive. Now, you don't want to stay in that space forever. I always was giving back as much and as often as I could, and still do.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are too many people, like we call them free seekers, or what did you call them?
Freeple cheaple.
Yeah, and you don't want to enable people to stay in that kind of mindset or space forever. No one can do the work for you. But it is okay, and we ought to be, reaching out, giving. That's why I also believe in mentoring and coaching so much.
Yes.
Because it's the fastest way to get to where you want to be.
For real. Cheat codes. So what's been your biggest win? So you so vulnerable and shared your sort of rock bottom. And then what's been your biggest win?
Well, that first one, my first
Yeah.
experience after that first certification with someone who paid me $500 to help him quit smoking.
Yes.
He came back on session 2 and he's like, yeah, I quit and I have no withdrawal symptoms. And I was like, you did? But you seem surprised. I'm like, oh, now I'm just really happy for you.
Oh my gosh.
In my mind, and I don't like the expression fake it till you make it, but there is that time in everyone's lives where it's your first client, it's your first session, it's your first appointment, it's your first speaking gig, it's your first video, and you have to be okay with that. You have
Mm-hmm.
and you have to actually, especially in the space of being a coach or a mentor or a hypnotherapist, you have to have a sense of confidence in yourself or your client won't have it in you.
Right.
So that can be tricky to find that balance of you don't want to be a fraud, you don't want to fake it till you make it, but you have to have enough confidence in your skills, even when you're brand new, that your client then experiences the results by believing in the services that you provide. So I was fortunate enough to, already be in I already kind of had those skills naturally. A lot of us coaches and mentors just grew up being the person that all the friends asked
Mm-hmm.
to, and still to this day, complete strangers will just open up to me,
Same.
and I have an aura of being a safe space for people
Mm-hmm.
in a non-judgmental capacity. I have that natural gift, as many of us coaches and mentors do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have to try to fake that too much. It's just naturally in your personality and your energy, but then
Mm-hmm.
you must develop actual skills if you want to charge money for it, right?
Yes, you do. That is so inspiring. It's those early wins because you proved to yourself, I can do this. And then you got paid. And then it's just expanded since then. What a remarkable story. Thank you so much for sharing. How can we continue the journey? I know you shared with us your academy of your website. How else can we continue this journey with you?
My favorite out of all of those is the podcast on YouTube, Ignition Point podcast on YouTube. That is where you will hear the experiences of these self-made millionaires and billionaires who, overcame things just like I shared with you and how they got through that. so that you can be prepared and be inspired to move through that and not give up on yourself and not think you're the only one going through this. And just see, this is a very common part of that journey as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And just know that if Dan Young could get through it, if Forbes Riley could get through it, if Amanda Moxley and Debbie Hart can get through it, then I can too.
True. Okay,
Because
so
vulnerable
ignition.
stories, and they make
I love that.
humanize everybody.
So good. Ignition Point, and it's here on YouTube.
Yep, on YouTube.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story and your heart and your triumph and your struggles and teaching all of us to be profitable. So everybody put an amen in the comments if you like today's video and right now, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you, Debbie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.